Dabuz, this isn't even a Nintendo game you're reviewing. What are you doing? This is, first of all, not Smash Brothers. Secondly, it's not Nintendo. Third, we don't watch YouTube reviews. What are you doing? And I'm saying, I played this game over 100 hours. I was grinding this game nonstop before Summit. Was upset I'd be gone for a week, making money at Summit because I couldn't play this game. Got home from Summit and just started playing this game immediately, like grinding it until I beat it pretty much. Yeah, I kind of just want to rant about this game if anything else. If someone likes this, cool. Getting into it, let's talk about Elden Ring, right? My review, my thoughts on the game. First of all, I played over 100 hours, so clearly I like it, right? You don't gotta say that. First thing that stands out to me. This game feels like Breath of the Wild in terms of you go into the open world, right? And you're like, oh my god, it's big, it's beautiful. There's so many places to go. You see a landmark, you can go there. You're checking your map, if something looks a little bit out of place, a little bit special, you can go there. Every direction you want to go, there's something in that direction. And there's almost always rewards in those directions. You know, some of them better than other ones, but there's always like, you're just non-stop getting stuff. This game adding a jump feature to a Souls game was so important because I can't imagine running around this world without the ability to jump freely. And sometimes like kind of break a little bit of the game, like jump into places I shouldn't, glitch the game out. It's pretty funny. And especially when on the horse, having the double jump on the horse is very nice for moving. So kind of just satisfying to run around. You can beat up some enemies if you want. And I think one of the coolest things is when you just find bosses. Giant freaking death birds, dragons, assassins. Like there's so many places you can randomly find bosses at night and just in whatever places. Because of that, just the way I explored, my like playthrough is so much different than anyone else I've talked to, and no one I've talked to has had like similar experiences with each other because of how free you are in this game. So that's really fun, and I really just like how they just kind of say do whatever you want. I will say when it comes to the actual environments, while there's a good amount of variation in like the open world environments, there's like one or two like really unique like open world places, and everything else is really standard for RPG. So that's kind of disappointing. Granted, the one really sick place this game has, I'm trying to avoid spoilers as much as I can, is fucking awesome. I was basically in like hell pretty much, and it was so cool. I think my biggest issue with the open world for this game, and probably with this game in general, is NPCs. Most of them have quest lines that, you know, span a few areas, are going to be something you like find, like, you know, find an NPC and then 10 hours later you find the next place they're in. But the thing I hate about it is it's so easy to miss them. A lot of these NPCs and quest lines have very little of any hints at all. So you can easily find a dude, never find him again, and wonder what happened to him. Or you might find him, go to an area they're in but not yet, then go back to another area you didn't check out, find them there, and then because you went to another area, you have no reason to go back there, you never find the NPC again who's in the area you were in before. So honestly, I don't blame anyone for looking up NPCs like quest lines, because while I think you shouldn't look up that stuff, it makes the game more fun to like explore on your own. And like just so much of the game feels like it's locked behind these quests. Maybe just a little bit of guidance would help. Also similarly, I feel like with like level curves in this game, it's very easy to go to an area, be underleveled but not realize it, go through it, which is what I did, and then go back to other areas and realize because I went through the higher level area, the other areas are actually easier, and like I could just roll through them. Some sort of scaling on the difficulty, maybe something to like a little bit of guidance, even if it's like some way to say, hey, that you should go to this area, this level, you should go here instead, maybe would have been very nice. I'll also say with this game, I think if you play this game online with like the signs and stuff, that kind of spoils some of the game's secrets. And I don't know, I like finding things my own. I don't like looking things up and just like knowing all the answers. I really enjoyed basically playing this game. Around halfway through, I turned off the messages, and I basically played this game finding things out on my own and talking with my friends who didn't, you know, look things up online. Because it was really cool for us to exchange information like an old school game and be like, what? You can go here and do this? That's cool. Try not to spoil yourself on things. Like make it like an adventure. Like it's a mysterious adventure outside of NPCs. I will say, however, because of all the secret stuff you can find, as long as you don't play through the game like the same way in multiple playthroughs, you're gonna find different things on each playthrough, and each playthrough is gonna feel so unique as a result, and you're gonna be like, whoa, I didn't know about this, or it would help me so much in the previous playthrough, especially for like new game pluses and stuff. So yeah, I think the open world is really good, but overall it's just a bit more direction in it, or a little bit more hints as to where very important things are would have been really nice. Actually, I don't want none of that like, hey, here's a tower here, here's a quest here marker, here's this marker. I don't want none of that. Also, I gotta say, there's like a crafting mechanic in this game that is pretty non-obtrusive. I've kind of liked it. The only thing that bothered me about it is that sometimes you'll find like this gear and it's like, oh, it's a purple item, it should be a rare item, right? And you go, you know, kill some enemies, platform a little bit, pick it up. Oh, it's a flower for crafting things I'm never gonna craft. Granted, I probably could use it a bit more, and I did use the crafting actually for some stuff, especially early, before you have like a lot of just useful items and like gear. But I overall like the crafting mechanics because it was pretty simple. It's, hey, get these items. Hey, find these items here if you need them. Like, the items only say where you find them. Pretty solid system there. Now, that's all the open world stuff, right? When it comes to the dungeons. So there's two types of dungeons in my eyes. There's the mini dungeons. There's the, you run around the world and you find this little like place, like a cave or a catacomb or something. And it's like a half an hour to an hour long, like little area with some enemies. Got a little mini boss at the end. And what's cool about them is they're all pretty unique. They don't overstay their welcome at all. And there's enough variety in the types of little dungeons you find that, except for the catacombs getting particularly repetitive, I'd say, they're all pretty fun and they're all pretty memorable. I liked how with these catacombs, you don't really find any unique bosses. A lot of them are just like, you know, mini bosses, you know, like a slightly interesting mechanic, but nothing too crazy, or maybe like some variations from each other. But considering the mini bosses, and a lot of times they'd be like a mix up, like a new move or a new like element, or maybe they combine like 2 or 3 at once. I thought it was pretty fun. And when it comes to rewards, you'll go through these places, right? Sometimes you get like a sick thing, like, oh, I got this new spell, or I got this new weapon I can use. And then other times it's, oh, I got spirit ashes, or oh, I got armor that I don't care for. I think it's cool though, because you have like the highs of, oh, I got something really sick, and the lows of, oh, I'm never gonna use this. You never quite know what, like, how you're gonna feel. And it's pretty cool, honestly, to have those highs and lows, especially because these are like, the dungeons themselves are fun. So I'm never really upset if it's not the great reward I want, because going through itself is rewarding. And then you have the big dungeons, like the main like places for the game, like the big bosses are the places you not have to go, but you're supposed to go, right? And this is classic Souls experience. So I'm not sure if I said this, but I have played like every Souls game, and I've replayed most of them at least a couple times. Every single major like place in this game, and there's a lot of them, is really distinct and cool. They have their own enemies, and a lot the enemies always different. You know, they're always, how do you fight them? What are they weak to? What are they strong against? How are they placed? What is even like the environment like? Is there a lot of like place you can fall off? Is it more closed off? Is it dark? Every place feels very unique, has its own challenges. And actually visually, even though I think the actual like places are pretty standard for Souls, they all stand out. And the actual like style of how you explore them and just how they look is stunning. Like when I go to a new castle and I get to like the top of this castle and I look around, I'm like, this is amazing. Or you're fighting through and just looking at all the things in the environment and it's like, oh, this is so cool. Oh, this tells a story. So I can't think of a single area I disliked. Also, I think the addition of a jump to your character is super noticeable here, because like all the dungeons have good verticality. Like they all have like places you can jump off of, and like secret paths, and like some platforming, and multiple ways to get through every area, which is actually one of the coolest things. The fact that these are like these long, like big, like mazes that aren't just like, oh, here's a side path. Go back to the linear path, side path, linear path. It's like, oh, side path leads to main path. Oh, you can cut this way and make your own path. Oh, this side path doesn't lead to the main path, but it's its own extra area with a mini boss and items. And it's really, really cool to figure out what's like intended and like what leads to stuff versus what's nothing. And especially because you can look around the environment and see, oh, there's an item here. How do I get this? Or this looks like a special area, I should check this out. Really, it feels like they kind of took the lessons from other Souls games of what makes the level design good and applied it perfectly to the main dungeons for this game. When it comes to the world building, I kind of alluded to this before, but like you can look around and really figure out the story and the lore for this game, which honestly, there's a lot of things I didn't know or just didn't get, or a lot of things I like was trying to figure out but didn't. But it was so cool to figure out what I did. It was really cool to read item descriptions. It's always what Souls games do, right? Pretty standard. But it was really fun still trying to figure it out on your own, and there's definitely a cool, like crazy stuff going on in this game, how you can just look at the bosses and NPCs and figure out that there's some shit going on. I'd say for the combat, for everyone who knows Souls games, pretty standard stuff, you know, which is fine. You got your heavy feeling attacks from you and the bosses. You have to find your punish windows and enemies. You got to figure out like you're supposed to dodge, you're supposed to run. The jump isn't used as much as I'd like for the combat, but there are some enemies where like you can use jumping attacks and go over very specific attacks, and I found that very useful actually on a lot of enemies. Pretty standard Souls combat overall. Specifically, I started the game out as a like dexterity, like dual dagger wielding assassin with a bow and like a lot of consumables, and transition into a mage, right? So I got to kind of play a little bit of all the combat, and enemies are really aggressive. Like if you're up next to enemies, you gotta find chances to dodge behind them and attack, know your parry timings. You You gotta know when you gotta go for quick attacks versus when you gotta go for like the stronger attacks to get more damage, or the poise breaks. Really satisfying. Bosses, even regular enemies, all have these ridiculous patterns of like weirdly timed like attacks that punish you for just spamming roll, that punish you for thinking you're out of the range when you're not, for just spamming potions, and they all have their own like different patterns, so it feels like every enemy in every fight is something you have to adapt to. My only issue is that honestly at this point I feel like Souls games have gotten to like this kind of point where you know you're getting with combat, right? It's getting stale. It's fun, it's satisfying, and now it comes to character customization. So I love my character customization. I love it. I love it. I play games and I think, how many ways can I build my character? What seems fun? What seems optimal? What can I switch to, etc. Right? This game gives you so many options. And transition from my Dex Arcane build to more of like a Dex Intelligence build into pure intelligence later on, into intelligence using 2 raid swords that scale with intelligence. So I was basically a strength build disguised as an intelligence build. And it was so cool throughout the game to like make these transitions, especially because you do get the ability to respec in this game, and you have enough respec items, you have to worry about like burning them as long as you don't go crazy with them. And there's a lot of stuff, like just as the mage alone, there's so many spells. There's probably like 50 plus spells in this game. For the most part, I found use for most of the spells and kind of found myself needing to use most of the spells throughout the game, or at least finding them good enough that I'd use them over other things, and eventually drop them for like upgraded versions or different versions, or just when they weren't useful, right? You know, there are some people who, you know, use the intelligence scaling Moonville for the whole game, and then there's people like me who said, you know what, that's cool, but I actually found that it started scaling off, so I started using intelligence fused scythe, and then eventually like a sword spear, and then eventually some great swords. So there's so many ways you can build and optimize and just do what's fun. I think every Souls game you want to play more for what's fun and what feels like a power fantasy as opposed to min-maxing, because if you min-max, you'll stomp through the game. Especially because this game is pretty easy, I'd say. The early game's kind of hard, and then we start getting like a build going. Most of the game's kind of easy. You might die a few times, but nothing crazy. And then late game is actually kind of hard again. But for the most part, this game isn't that hard. You don't have to min-max or anything. There's so much you can do, and there's so many different weapon arts. Play what you think is fun. I also didn't like how weapon level matters more than stats. Like your stats until you get to really late game where you have like 80 in your damage scaling stat. But before that, a lot of times you're leveling up your stats just to equip weapons. Like it hits a point where it's like, oh, I need 20 intelligence for this weapon or 30 strength for this weapon, whatever it is. And it doesn't really feel like those stats when it comes to offensively matter as much as, oh, is my sword +5 or +7? Especially with weapon arts, scaling heavily on the weapon level and not so much your stats. Like I didn't feel like my build really mattered that much until later in the game. And minor thing, but I love how every Souls game armors look cool. This game, honestly, I kind of actually wish the armors looked a little bit cooler. I feel like there isn't that many cool looking armors. Actually a lot of armor where I was like, I'm not going to use this because it's ugly. But there's a lot of options, and honestly, armor, like, stats don't matter that much. So you kind of just use what you think looks cool for the most part. Yeah, overall, great game. I do plan to play through the game again at some point. Definitely a game with a lot of replay value. Just a great game, over 100 hours. I was addicted. All my friends are addicted still. I will say I've tried some PvP for the game to add even more length to it. And the PvPs, I don't like PvP in Souls games anyway. This one's not any different. It feels janky and imbalanced, stupid. I've tried co-op PvE as well, and I've gotten so frustrated trying to help people on like the hard bosses for the game, and then the people I'm helping, get hit by one combo when they die, and I'm like, can't help this. The multiplayer in this game for me has been a negative experience, but I've tried it out. That's a little like fun side note. This game has too much content. It's a weird complaint, right? But near the end of the game, I found myself finding like places and kind of saying, yeah, I don't feel like doing this. I want to like go to the main areas. I want to make progress. I don't want to get too over leveled, and I already am. I love the game, but it honestly feels like it overstays its welcome by lasting too long. That's a good complaint to have. A game lasts too long. There's too much content in my $65 game. I won't be surprised if this game is like one of the best games of all time. You guys hear me talk about games on my stream? I'm very picky with my games. So me saying that, high praises. And yeah, hope you guys just like me just ranting about games for reviews. Peace out. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. I'll probably talk about Kirby next because I'm playing through that. Pretty fun game so far.